Well, I'm John Turner. I've been a member since 1972 and I've been on the committee for quite a lot of that time and Vice President for the past 12 years. I started my film involvement with the Manchester and Salford Film Society in 1954 when I was at Manchester University, and in 1955 I curated a short classic film programme for them on 16mm. They were a huge 35mm society which filled two cinemas, a twin cinema complex. They filled it once a month. In 1957, after I left university, I got a job down in the south of England, joined the Kingston-on-Thames Film Society, and then started a film society in Epsom, where my wife and I had bought a house. In 1968, we, with our two young sons, emigrated to Perth in Western Australia. And in Perth, we looked around and we found the International Film Theatre, which was the biggest film society in Western Australia. We joined at the beginning of 1969, and in May, at the annual general meeting, I was asked to be treasurer. Now, IFT was really like a small business rather than a film society. It had 1,300 members, and we had door sales of over 100 each week. We screened every Sunday night in two city cinemas, and we would get over 100 door sales each week, all of which had to be accounted for tax and with the distributors. So I stayed as treasurer of IFT until I changed jobs and moved to International Business Machine, IBM, and they moved me to Melbourne in 1971. And I flirted briefly with Erwin Rado at Melbourne Film Society, but found Croydon Society when we bought a house in Park Orchards, joined there and was elected to the committee immediately. At that time, Roy Pittman was the president, and Betty Jope, nominally secretary, did about 6 other jobs, all of which I'm sure you'll hear about during the course of these interviews. She was a real stickler for work. The minutes of her committee meetings were notorious. The record, she used to type out the minutes, single space, no illustrations, on foolscap paper, and the record number of pages I found was that 27 pages she sent out for the minutes of one particular meeting. Anyway, I was Betty's gopher when I joined the committee. I used to pick up films and do all her other odd jobs. But because I had access to the IBM training computer, I was able to write a program and print labels for her, so that every 2 months she used to send out the Society's newsletter and type out all the 300 or so envelopes. So this saved her enormous amount of time. The other thing I did during those days was with another committee member, Ken Chendwigan. We instituted a Sunday screening in the supper room at Croydon Hall, in which we used to show a couple of films by famous directors which weren't available on 35mm for the main society. And this we did for a number of years. I must say the supper room at Croydon Hall was far warmer than the actual auditorium. Anyway, during this time, I got involved with the Federation of Victorian Film Societies and the Australian Council of Film Societies. Now, one of the things I noted about working with Australian film societies after the English ones was that when you came to do programming, there was no list of available films that you could refer to. And so whoever convened the meeting, if he or she said that film didn't exist, then nobody could argue with them. That, to me, was something that you couldn't really work with. And so for the Australian Council, I managed to get a grant from the Film, Radio and TV Board and produce a catalogue of all the films available in Australia on that date. This was meant for Film Society use only, but very quickly became very useful to a lot of other 16mm film users. In fact, all film users, and it became a bestseller, and it actually bankrolled the council for about the next decade. Anyway, with all the work I was doing with the Federation and with the council, eventually by the end of the 70s I had to drop off the Croydon Film Society committee, and I was off the committee then, still a member, but I was off the committee then for a number of years. I was brought back at the behest of Craig Allenby, who asked me to come back on the committee and help with the programming and the venue liaison. And so at this time John Arkins was the secretary and later became president, and under his encouragement I took over the organisation of the Film Selection Committee. Also, of course, at this time, the reading cinemas decided to increase the rental for our use of the reading cinema to an extortionate amount, and we had to move. And so I was very much involved with the move to Croydon Cinema, or back to Croydon Cinema, because we'd been there before. And that lasted for a number of years, during which I started the afternoon screenings, which became, I wouldn't say madly successful, but they became very acceptable to about 50 or 60 people who still turn up religiously for the winter afternoon screenings. Croydon Cinema eventually decided to close, and I must admit that the hardest job I've ever done with the film societies was in persuading the owners of the Croydon Cinema to keep their doors open for an extra 3 months, so that we had time to find another venue and then liaise with Tom here at Baronia and set it up so that we could move. So, as you say, I had a long history of involvement with the Committee of Croydon Film Society, and I can't really talk about individual people, but I would, in closing, just like to mention one lady who should be part of this process of interviews, but she just couldn't see herself sitting in front of a camera talking about herself, and so I'll do a little bit for her. Now, in any film society with 50 members or more, you really need to have a membership secretary who's on the ball and very committed to the job. And Croydon Film Society were very, very lucky that for 48 years they had Julie Peach in this role. She was absolutely, totally involved, and I'm sure every older member of the society will agree that Julie was a great factor in the success of the Film Society. She treated members as though they were part of her extended family. So I just want to make sure that Julie is remembered in this process. Thank you very much.